Welcome to another edition of the Dateline Downtown podcast. This is your host, Juan Hernandez, and today we have a very special guest. This is our very first phone interview for the Dateline Downtown podcast. Rich Ward, from guitar player from Fozzy. How are you?
Yeah, Juan, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for taking the time to speak with me today.
No, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk with us.
Yeah, we're in Des Moines, Iowa today, and we just got through doing a little line check, and I've got sound check in a few minutes, so I was wanting to just take some time and give you a call and talk about rock and roll, man.
Absolutely. How's the weather up there in Iowa?
It's raining and it's cold. But and our satellite on our bus went out, so our bass player, who is from Seattle, was watching the Seahawks play, and now he's crying because there's no game because all the rain clouds have killed our reception.
Oh, wow. Are you a big football fan yourself?
No, I don't follow a lot of sports. I'm kind of a music and a podcast junkie, so you know I guess when I'm at home, my wife and I are into to movies, and we follow a couple of TV series. And occasionally I'll watch playoff. Obviously, I'm kind of one of those fair weather fans who will watch like exciting playoff stuff. But early in the season or mid season stuff, I usually don't watch much of.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I'll catch a game here and then. Right now, I just watched the Houston Texans lose again.
Oh no!
Against the Bengals. They have a good chance of making the playoffs again, but it's not looking good.
Yeah, that's the one thing about following sports is that it's a lot of time that you invest into your whatever the sport that you're into, and if you're a multi-sport guy or girl, then you could be in for the weekend for 12 hours of just sitting on a chair watching television, and then there's a good chance you're going to be disappointed because your teams are losing. So it's like I've spent all this time and invested this energy, and now I'm bummed out because my team didn't win. So it's tough, man.
That's true. I'm a regular football fan myself. I'll have it running in the background every now and then, and I'll be doing homework or taking care of other things, stuff like that. But it's great to hear that you guys are coming to Houston once again to play at the Scout Bar on December the 3rd.
I know, we're so fired up about it. We just Texas has always been special for us, and so it's interesting because when bands talk about we're touring in the States, well, every region of the United States has a different kind of fans.
Right.
And when you start getting into the Southwest and you're in Texas and Arizona and New Mexico, man, people are just crazy, and it's the loudest crowds, and we're just really excited about coming back down.
Right. I had the chance to see you guys twice already, and you guys really bring it as far as live performing goes.
Yeah, well, we grew up with bands like Kiss and Van Halen and Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and the Scorpions, who were all really very active on stage, and they were big influences on us when we were kids growing up. And just like with anything, when your heroes are a certain way, you tend to emulate them early on.
Right.
And so and here we are, 20 years later, and we're still listening to and still look up to those same bands.
Right. What's the preparation like for a show? In terms of practicing or getting ready for the show?
Everybody in the band plays throughout the day a little bit. I try to play guitar at least an hour a day, sometime before the show, just to have some practice time. And Chris and I, Jericho, our singer,
right.
He and I, we do a warm up right before the show. So I'll kind of play through some of the songs on a practice amp backstage, and Chris will sing along and kind of just get ready for the show.
Awesome. And you guys it's been out for a while since the last summer, your new album, Do You Want to Start a War? Is it getting more, I guess, I wouldn't say easier, but more comfortable to do albums?
Yeah, I think so, because it's like anything else, you just get better at it.
Right.
And that's kind of the secret to I think anything, whether it's sports or if you're trying to be a comedian or a musician, it's stick to it and work hard. And the more that you do it, as long as you're committed and you're passionate and focused on being the best you can be, you will get better with every album. And the other thing is that I find interesting is that some bands, as they get older, will try to experiment and try different things, and then other bands will more fine-tune their sound because they are refining who they are as an artist, and they become more in touch with what's their voice, what's their message, who am I, and who are we as a group. And I feel like that's been kind of the secret to Fozzy is over the years we've really grown together as a band and learned about each other as players and musicians and artists, and I think we've become better because just like a sports franchise, the teams that win are the ones that play their position. You know,
Right.
Not everyone can be the quarterback. Not everybody can be the running back. You learn where your strengths are, and you find your place in the group, and you be honest with each other on what your thoughts are on the songs, and you just, you bring the passion and all of your tens of thousands of hours of practice and commitment to it, and hopefully at the end you've made something special.
Right. Ultimately, it comes down to being a team.
That's exactly right.
And right now, are there any? I mean, I know you guys are very busy with touring, but are there any tours that you've been able to catch while being on the road?
No, when we're on the road, there's so little time, to do anything. I mean, I guess you could, but we're all into exercising. We all do the DDP yoga every day, and and then plus, when you're out on the road, you're looking for where are we going to have lunch, and you're just kind of, it's half, it's half working and half being on vacation.
Right. Right.
So part of the fun of being on vacation is finding cool places to eat and meeting new people, and where's the cool local coffee shop, and is there a music store that we can go look at old used vinyl or live bootlegs. So you can do that, but trying to find time to actually go out and see shows is just almost impossible. You occasionally will have a day off where if you're lucky enough, there's another band that's playing in town and you can see them. But God, that's such the exception. Usually a day off is usually everyone will go to a movie, because it's always fun to get the band together and get your road crew and everybody goes to see a movie that you hadn't seen yet, and that's kind of cool. Or a lot of times it'll just be spent working on new songs on the bus. Everyone's just kind of songwriting and working on, or you just sleep for 18 hours and get caught up.
Right. Right. Do you bring a portable studio on the road?
Yeah, we sure do.
What's the setup like for that? Because right now I'm recording just straight through a laptop and a mic. That's about it.
Well, we have a digital interface that connects, basically just speaks from guitars and the microphones into the computer, and
Right.
we run a software called Pro Tools, which is pretty much the industry standard that most bands use.
Right.
And we run a pretty small rig. It's a laptop and a little interface, a couple of microphones, and we use a drum software. So it's basically the drum sounds are in the computer on a software we purchased, and then we use a keyboard to play the drum beats. So our drummer will just basically play drums on a keyboard, because this key will be a kick drum, and this key will be a snare drum, and this one's a cymbal. And we just work through the songs, and sometimes as we're working individually, like sometimes I'll just write the programming, drum ideas, and guitar riffs, and sometimes we'll work completely as a band.
Going back to what we're talking about it being more comfortable, I guess it is more easier now with the technology nowadays to get a lot more stuff done.
Yeah, it is, because 25 years ago we were all using handheld cassette recorders, and that's how we
Wow.
we got ideas down. We would sit down with an acoustic guitar or an electric guitar and a little practice amp, and we would play along, and you'd sing it or hum an idea along with it, but you basically were limited to just, like I said, a little cassette.
Right.
And we did, and that worked great. It was, and we all had little 4-track recorders, which meant we could overdub. So we actually had 4 tracks. So I could do 1 track with a drum machine. So we'd use an old, drum machine, which is basically the same thing as we do now, except for that technology makes it just easier to do. And you got 1 track for bass and 1 track for guitar and 1 for vocals, and and you got a neat little writing demo.
And listening to stories from other bands from back then, the time that it took to just make an album. I mean, for some bands it was just a couple days, like Black Sabbath or the older bands, but you hear a band like Guns N' Roses taking years and years to just get down a record. It's amazing.
I think a lot of it comes down to what kind of band are you and what kind of record are you making.
Right.
That record that you're talking about, that Chinese Democracy record,
right, absolutely,
took years and years to write.
Mm-hmm.
I think that had more to do with Axl really interested in exploring a million options and writing 100 songs and trying to work with a dozen different musicians, and I just think he wanted to make a huge studio record, something that was kind of harkens back to like Queen or Pink Floyd, something that was grand in scope,
very theatrical.
That's right. Whereas Black Sabbath is just 4 guys in a room.
Right.
It's about capturing that live, so that process would be a lot quicker to record because the scale and the scope of what you're doing is more stripped back and raw. So whereas Guns N' Roses is trying to create this huge sonic tapestry and landscape on that record, Black Sabbath is just trying to beat you over the head with a club. And but that just comes down to just capturing energy and magic.
Right. And have you ever had the chance before you were in Fozzy to actually record live? Like instead of just recording your parts and then having someone else record their parts? It's been
a lot of years since we've I was in a band before Fozzy called Stuck Mojo,
right,
and
correct.
we had our first couple of demos that we recorded. We were just set up in a room and played. But I think the first record that we ever recorded, the producer, we all set up and played together, but then we went back and overdubbed all of what we were doing. So we recorded live, but the only thing we kept was the drums.
Right.
And what we did is we overdubbed the bass, and then we re-recorded the guitars and re-recorded the vocals. And that, I think, is pretty much the standard that, formula that most bands do. Now, there are some bands who are never even in the same city, much less the same studio when they're recording albums. You're sending hard drives or even files over the internet and say, hey, go to a local studio near you and you record the bass and send it back to me via email. And there's a lot of that done these days, and some of those records are amazing. So I don't think there's any clear-cut rule on what works and what doesn't. You just have to find what formula is best for your band and what gets you the best results.
Right. Then again, in rock and roll, there are no rules. So.
Exactly right, and that's true in life, right? I mean,
right.
I'm sure for you in podcasting, there are so many different, formats now that people are doing. Like, I think Carolla was one of the main guys who started it for most of you guys, and he kind of got his formula from the Howard Stern show, and then from there, you got Mark Maron and Joe Rogan, and now Jericho and Austin, and
Eddie Trunk.
I'm a huge podcast fan, and I listen a lot. So it's cool for me to talk with you. Thanks for spending the time. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Are there any particular, like you just mentioned Rogan and Mark Maron, are there any favorites that you really like listening to?
I listen to Carolla every day.
Oh, wow.
He's my favorite. I love Carolla. Every once in a while, I'm busy and I won't hear it But a lot of times, when I get home, I want to do like a little project at the house. You want to clean out the garage, or if you want to just work on a car, or go outside and plant a tree or something. I can listen to like 3 or 4 in a row, and I can start to get kind of caught up.
Right.
But I like Adam a lot. I think he's a smart guy. I think he has a great show. I agree with a lot of his worldview. So sometimes when he's speaking, it's like the voice inside my head as well sometimes. And so that's, I think, the connection for all of us. Like, I know, even though I'm not a big hunter and I don't have those types of things in common with Stone Cold, I still love his podcast because it's entertaining. And when he's telling stories, because I'm a wrestling fan too. That's how I met Jericho. I mean, I grew up watching wrestling, and because I was from Charlotte, North Carolina, so we had that great, we just had that great lineage there in Charlotte, and then I moved to Atlanta, so we had WCW and Georgia Championship Wrestling. So for me, I love those old stories, and I even love listening to, JR's podcast. I think it's great too. He's had some great guests, and so I'm excited because I think radio will probably be gone in 10 years, and it'll all be about podcasts.
Right. Personally, I don't listen to the radio anymore as much as I used to. It's mostly just podcasts and music here and there. But have you ever thought of making your own podcast to talk about music and just anything that interests you?
Well, I'm going to probably say 10 years ago, I used to do what is now called podcast, where I would sit down with friends of mine, and we would just record an hour of us talking, and then I would upload it to my website. So I guess I used to kind of do what we just talk about stories on the road, but then
right.
I guess back then it was just about putting content up there for your fans to listen to and tell stories on the road. And I'd love to do it again, but the only thing about, you got to be committed. If you're going to have a podcast, you got to build your fan base, and you got to have your shows out at a certain time, and that's just something that I don't know. It's something that I wouldn't want to have to commit myself to a schedule where I have to have one out every Wednesday, but I would love to, every once in a while. I mean, I've done the Eddie Trunk podcast. I've been on Corolla's podcast. I've been on Jericho's a couple of times, and I love being a guest. It's always cool to be a guest, but being a host takes a skill, and
right.
I'm not sure that I have that talent.
I wasn't so sure about that either, but up until I started doing it with my friend, and we're like, hey, there has to be some sort of dynamic and some sort of chemistry when you're doing it with someone else. But if you're doing it by yourself, I guess you, like you said, you have to be really committed to doing it, to building your fan base, and getting stuff out there on a schedule. And it takes a lot of time, but if you really like it, then you should really go for it.
Man, cool, man.
A couple more questions. I'm not sure how much time we have left, but
rock it out. Let's go.
Let's see. Any memories from playing in Houston that you might have in the past? I know you've played here quite a lot with Fozzy and.
Yeah, well, isn't there a club that was in Houston in the mid-90s called The Abyss?
Pretty sure I've heard of that club. Yeah, I don't think it is there anymore, but I've heard of it a lot.
We had a great show. I'm almost positive that was the name of the club. I know it was Houston, but I think it was called The Abyss. And and the reason I know that I remember that show is because there's a bootleg CD copy or DVD copy that someone gave me years later. But we played there in 1999.
Mm-hmm.
It was an amazing show, and I just remember it was kind of a bigger theater, maybe held, I don't know, 1,500 or 2,000 people, and it was packed and sweaty, and it had such a great vibe. And my first time playing in Houston was in 1995. with Stuck Mojo. We were opening for a band called Machine Head, and
Oh wow.
it was an amazing show. It was killer, and yeah, I mean, I've probably been to Houston 20 times, and it's always been a great show. Like I said, I love Texas. I mean, El Paso, San Antonio, Dallas, Austin, Houston. I mean, it's amazing gigs. It's always fun. I even played, we've obviously played Corpus Christi and Lubbock, Amarillo, and it's a great state, and I love the Texas spirit and attitude. And so it's always great to be there.
Everything's bigger in Texas, as they say.
That's right, man.
And the band it's been around since '99. Do you see it continuing for another 15, 20 years?
I don't see why not. I mean, the key to a band lasting for a long time is you just like to be around each other.
Right.
The reason why bands break up is because it's usually over personality conflicts, and you can't get along, or you don't see eye to eye with music,
or money.
or money. That's right. And we've once you pass that mark of 15 years, I think we've gone through all of the arguing and fighting and fussing and growing pains that you're going to have as a band, and we get along great. We're all best friends, and we love touring together, and there's never a moment of turmoil in this band. It's always, because everyone does it because they love it. There's nobody out here in this band just showing up to make money. Everybody does this because they're passionate about it. I mean, let's face it, Jericho is one of the top workers in the history of wrestling, and he could be out on the road right now wrestling, making a lot more money than he does being in a band.
Right.
But the reason that he's here is because he loves music, and it's a passion for him. And the rest of us are the same way. So, when you put the music first and you put your fans first, and your respect for your bandmates, you're going to be successful.
And I think you can see that right away when a band is playing, or when you hear them talk in interviews. What they're like.
Oh, amen, brother. Of course.
I mean, because like you guys, I've met you guys before, and you're just the coolest bunch. Just another one of the guys. You could just hang and talk music, talk sports, talk podcasting, like we are right now.
You can sniff a phony. You can sniff out a phony so quickly, can't you?
Right, absolutely. I know it's too early to say, but do you guys have plans to start working on a new album for Fozzy?
Yeah, I would probably say that by the end of 2015, we'd have a new record. The way things in the music business now are working are right around 18-month cycles.
Mm-hmm.
We put the new album out in August, so that puts us at, Christmas time or the first of the year, kind of 2015, 2016. But I've just taken a stab at it based on, what schedules kind of look like. It could be earlier or it could be later. It's, we're the musicians, but it is the music business, and the business side of it is really determined by those folks at the record company and our management, and they're in charge of all those details.
Right, and it's not how it used to be back then, where record companies were right behind bands. Nowadays it's pretty much, bands going out there on the road, because there's no, with the rise of Spotify and illegal downloading, it's become a lot more harder than it used to be.
Yeah, we're lucky.
On that end, yeah.
We're lucky because we're on a label that we really like, and that we have a great relationship. Our head of A&R is a guy named Steve Joe, who I've known for 15 years, and he is a great guy. He's an honest guy. He cares about music. He cares about the bands. And our manager, Mark Willis, who has been my manager since 1992, is as good as you're going to find in this industry, and we're just lucky because we're surrounded by good people, and that makes it easier. Because it's like, and I have a great wife. When you have good people surrounding you, it makes it easier to be successful, because it alleviates a lot of those external tensions and stuff, and allows you to focus in on what you do, which is play guitar and write songs.
Rich, it has been an absolute pleasure for you to come on our show. And any last words for Houston fans listening and Fozzy fans?
Yeah, just make sure that when you're at the Houston show, to find Juan Hernandez, pat him on the back, and tell him, freaking go for it, brother. We need great podcast, and that supports your local boys, man.
Absolutely, and you can find all your information at FozzyRock.com. You know, you guys have all the links for your Twitters and your Facebooks.
Yeah, it's all there, and people are so smart now. They want to find somebody's social media stuff. You can search that stuff out so easy. Right,
Rich. Again, an absolute pleasure, and you know, I wish you the very best this holiday season.
Yeah, you too, Juan, man. Thank you. It was an honor talking to you, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. All right.
Absolutely, I'll definitely look you up at the Houston show.
That's great, Juan. Thanks, brother.
All right, have a good one. Thank you. Well, there you have it, folks. Another amazing podcast, this time talking music with guitar player Rich Ward from Fozzy. Again, you can catch Fozzy at the Scout Bar on December 3rd in Houston, Texas. They're on their Cinderblock Party tour right now, so you can also buy their new album, Do You Want to Start a War, on Amazon, wherever CDs are sold nowadays. You can look it up on iTunes. They also have a new music video out for their title track, so you can check that out on YouTube as well. Thanks again, guys, for listening. You can always find our links for everything social media at datelinedowntown.com. To listen to this podcast episode and previous podcast episodes, you can simply visit datelinedowntown.com/podcast. Be sure to like our page on Facebook at Dateline Downtown and follow us on Twitter at The Dateline. Thanks again for listening, guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode.